Hey guys, this is Joe, founder and host of Startuprad.io. As you guys may already know, I've run this podcast full-time since January 2021. I'm very happy to announce that Anchor FM is my sponsor for this podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free and it's easy to use, even for a newbie. They're creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome to Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Welcome everybody, this is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany. I am bringing you on a Tuesday publication our interview with Hessen Trade and Invest. You may have missed last month for the very simple reason Corona kind of wreaked havoc on our schedule and on all the connections, as well as the schedule of our sponsor. Nonetheless, we do have Maria here for an interview. Hey Maria, how you doing?
Hi, Jörn. Super. I'm doing good. Very happy to be here. And you just told me that you are one of the top tweeters and, in the ecosystem of Germany and startups. So I'm in the right place. Happy to be here.
Yes, I do believe in the past this was called an influencer, but I'm not sure if I really want to be one. We are talking about you today, because I do believe you have a very interesting CV. You're now living in Frankfurt and you're the co-founder of Accelerator Frankfurt. And in this position, you've been giving us an interview already. You can go down here in the show notes and find this one. And I do believe you're right now already at wave 8 of your Accelerator, right?
That's correct. So now we are on wave 8. I think we started 2015. And been running more or less, of course, before the corona happened, like on-site programs, 3 to 4 months, taking startups that were in the beginning very early stage, but later on moved more to this kind of go-to-market program, where companies who wanted to enter the German finance market would go through our program and get, investors and investments and also, of course, clients to our program. And now it's really the wave 8. And I have to say, since Corona, so the wave 7 was already an online program. So we did a purely blockchain program with 5 companies, and it was really successful. We were actually very surprised of this fact, and many of the companies even got investments through the program. So I think it's always like that. At first, you think that, oh shit, maybe the bad word, but that, oh, what I'm going to do. The life changed on what how we used to see it. But then we thought about it with Ram, who's the founder of Accelerator Frankfurt, that that now is what are we going to do differently? So we said, what, we have nothing to lose. So let's do online. Let's see how it works. And let's do a bit like a Big Brother meets, Lion's Den and see, what we can do. And I think it was very helpful for the investors also, because they had the chance to peek a bit deeper into the startups and how they deal with different kind of situations. And then I think why we did the wave 8 was that it has really been bothering me for a long time that there are so few female founders. And especially, through our program, we had like 40 companies, and one of them, to be honest, had like a pure, real female founder in it. So we thought, what, if it's really that difficult, so how can we facilitate it? And we also thought that it's probably better to go for early stage companies, those who don't maybe have, the network. They don't know other people with whom they could found a company. Maybe they're even single founders. And so we started the wave 8. And so I'm very happy about that. Funnily enough, we have 4 females, which 3 of them are Finns. So maybe they tell something about the Finnish entrepreneurship. But we have one is a German, and she's great, Carla. And actually, two of these founders do live in Germany. So we have a good 50-50 split.
Besides that, you are also the CEO of a small startup company called Mindclip. Can you wrap up in like a few sentences what you guys are actually doing there?
Yeah, so Mindclip Behavior is a team development application. I would say that during the years, working with startups and helping them, and of course working with big corporates also, I realized the biggest problem in companies is that the teams don't know how to communicate with each other. And I would say that it's a problem for the team members themselves, because they are misunderstood and they don't understand that it's with their own behavior that they actually cause these kind of reactions. And for the corporates also, it's a problem because if the teams don't work well together, they are not so efficient. And as we all know, people do not leave the companies for their great vision and mission. They actually often leave the company because they have a bad boss, and they stay because they have a great team. So this is to help the team leaders and helping the team members to really work efficiently together.
Yeah, the team usually makes a big difference. And we are talking to you now because you're one of the many, many, many investors living in the Rhine-Main region. You're investing as a business angel as well as through indirect means. And the first thing that I was curious was, how do you decide to become a business angel? Does it happen by accident, or do you just decide one day you get up as, oh, got some spare money, let's reach out to the next business angel association and do some investment? How did it happen to you?
Yeah, well, I think for me it happened. I mean, it started, of course, quite a long time ago when I was still living in China, and the financial crisis happened. 2008 and 9, and then you have let's say more time in your hands, and you have different kind of people reaching out to you. So I was living in China and I had friends from Finland who had the business ideas and who were looking for clients and maybe looking for financing. And I was thinking that these people are really different. They're very crazy. They are willing to put everything they have. They put their house on the mortgage and go for an idea that they really believe in. And I started to think, I like this kind of, not only the willingness to take risk, but also the fact that they were actually coming up with new ideas and testing them out. And if it didn't work, they would try something new and not get hang on, to something that was like a legacy for them, since they, of course, had none. So I think for me, it happened in like, I would say, more gradually. So I started first helping these kind of startups, and, I would get sweat equity, I would help them work, and they would give me some shares. And then, of course, with time, and you have some extra money and something that you really believed in, it was normally like friends and, someone who you knew, had a personal relationship with for a longer time, because it is a very risky business. So normally you want to invest in people that you know. So I think for me, it started like a bit more gradually. And I think in a way it led to, many of the other things that we then did, setting up the Accelerator Frankfurt. But I would say that if one is very new in these areas, of course, the best thing is also to join some business angel conglomerates, or like in Frankfurt Rhein-Main we have the organization. Or then find another opportunities like myself, investing through a certain like a special purpose vehicle with other people. So I think there's more risk averse ways also of doing it.
I see. And since we are also available on Himalaya FM in mainland China, just poking a little bit more, where did you live in China for how long? And can you say a little bit in Mandarin?
你好，我是 Maria，我处在上海3年。So so I lived in Shanghai for 3 years, and lived a bit also in Hong Kong. And I think I would say the Chinese people are very, very innovative. I think they're the ones who are willing to take big risks and go for it and try things. So I think I really enjoyed living there in Shanghai. Very, very vibrant environment. For, I'm sure, also for startups.
My personal experience from China is that, let's say, a little bit opposed to Germany or Europe, you can always feel the pressure of competition there. And that's why I do believe they are also forced to be innovative there. And we now know how you became a business angel, but I would be now a little bit curious how you're actually approaching an investment, because usually it happens that you get that somebody tells you about a crazy idea, and in the first moment you think that'll never work. No freaking way. And then if you look deeper in it, you actually find that there's something that is really working there. For example, I was once on a party meeting someone who is running a butterfly farm, which apparently is also a valid and good business. So that was one of the moments that actually something really surprised me. And ever since I started digging into that, is it the same for you?
Probably, maybe not, because for me, I do need to believe in from the beginning that it makes sense, let's say, or that there's an interesting opportunity, that there's some kind of market for the idea. But for me, it's very important, the personal relationship I have with the founders. So most of the people that I invest in, I've known them for a long time. And, I help them, I give them some ideas. And I think that's how the idea of the Accelerator Frankfurt was also born, because we realized that it takes time to build a relationship. I mean, I think it's very rare that you meet someone and they immediately give you their money. I think that would be, maybe if you have too much and you don't know what to do with them, you throw them around. But I would say the normal way is, to build a relationship and, to know you, in a way, in the first beginning, especially when you invest in seed. I mean, you invest in the person. You believe that this person is reliable. They're not going to run away with the money. That they're doing something that they actually themselves believe in. And when they believe in it, you are more inclined to believe in it too.
Since you've been talking about seed, which is a very early stage in startup investing, but admittedly one of the places where a good business angel makes a real big difference. I would be curious, how important are stuff like getting a pitch deck, getting valid numbers on this? Because it's all, most of the time there, estimate something like this. How important is it that at least you get the impression somebody really took the effort in understanding this and putting in some numbers, doing some research?
Yeah, I think it's very important, to have a deck that people can understand, that that you can clearly explain, because it's always more difficult to explain something shortly in a very concise and precise way, or say in 2 sentences what is it that you're actually doing. So I think it's important for yourself as a founder to have a pitch deck that because it means that you have thought about it, you've done the research, and I think that's actually the whole idea of doing a pitch deck, that you can demonstrate that you understand what you're doing, you understand what is that you want to accomplish in a long run. It explains how do you see the market, how do you see the other players in it, and that you can do some simple mathematical calculations that with a certain amount of money, how far can you get, and that you understand that in life nothing is for free. There's certain things that cost money, and you need people and many things you can't do alone. But it shows you that you have logically thought about the whole process, and what is it that you actually need to go from A to B.
Basically, you want to know, if they set up a project plan, how to achieve world domination, right?
Yes, hopefully in the end.
I see. Let's say you have a startup and you're thinking about investing in it. What would be some red flags you would at least dig deeper into the startup, into the background of that?
Well, I think it's normally if you look at the person who's setting up a company. Of course, I think I don't think I've ever invested in very young people. People without any kind of track record, because I think it does tell you something about the person. For example, if you had a couple of employments, did you stay there for 3 months or 1 year, or did you actually stay there for a long time, and then you're setting up a company that actually somehow based on what you did before, so that you have some kind of expertise in the area. Either you are a great coder, or you are great in marketing, or maybe you are building a company in a business area where you were in, or maybe you found a niche that you actually you have a special, like, let's say, like this kind of advantage that the others wouldn't have, because in the end you're probably not going to be the only player in the market. So the more, let's say, ammunition that you have on you, the easier it is going to be for you. I think I would say probably, we normally say that you should have a co-founder, so you shouldn't be a sole founder in the company, because if you couldn't convince anyone else, to join you, so maybe it's a red flag. And I guess, let's say that what is a problem sometimes for companies that maybe did already let's say the pre-seed round and approaching then seed financing, is that they gave too much of their company away already too early. Because, if the company doesn't have or the founders don't have 75% when you go to seed round, you're in deep trouble. You should preferably have the 75% when you go to Series A. So, but of course, sometimes it's difficult, with how much money you need to do certain things. But let's say that would be those kind of, things that many people don't think about in the beginning.
That's an interesting perspective, because usually you would say, investors, they want to have the maximum of equity in there. But that's something I've heard from a lot of good business angels, that you want to have the founder running the majority of the equity, because they have an incentive to push it forward. But I also heard about business angels who want to be the backseat driver. Personally, I've been working very closely with business angels who more work as coaches and advisors, and sometimes even normal employees, even though they invested a lot of money in the company. What is the kind of support, if you have a new founder out there, let's say a woman who's looking around in the Frankfurt Rhine-Main area for business angels, what would you advise her besides the money? How you can profit from a business angel? What would be great skills, network stuff she should be looking for?
Yeah, I think it's always good to look for skills that you don't have, because you normally like to complement what you have. And I think the problem is, of course, when you are a young company, maybe you are only 2 people or 3 people, so obviously you're always lacking hands of getting things done. So I think it's the good thing is always, as I said, to think about how can they help you, how can they complement what you already have. Maybe, especially, of course, if they have a good network, that is something always valuable. They can maybe bring you new investors for your next investment round. Maybe they can bring you clients. Maybe they can bring you other contacts, and their own experience. And I personally really think it's very important that the business angel also understands their role. So normally they should be like an advisor. They can be maybe a board member once you get that far. But they should not try to run the company, because I would say they are these devils who think that they want to have, as you said, as much of the company as possible, but then it doesn't make any sense. Because if you think logically, that when is the company going to be ready to be, let's say, exited in some way? If they're an IPO, or a bigger company maybe acquires you probably need at least 3-4 investment rounds. And if you think about that, each investment round is going to dilute the founders by 20%. And if you start with 50, I mean, after one round you are down to 30. After the second round you're down to 10%. How incentivized are the founders going to be to stay in the company and build it? So I think it's very short-sighted for investors to think this way. So I think that's it. Like, really think carefully. If one has the luxury, of course, that one can choose the investor. Sometimes you just need to take the money where you can get it. But at least try to understand that, and make it clear maybe from the beginning what is the expectations of the business angel.
Personal experience, what I've also been working in the past at other startups, is they have very good business angels who are critical voices. Not to say you have like constant fights within the companies, but they give you a different perspective. They make you think. There's also something I would be looking for in a business angel, as well as if you're looking like in a B2B context, in B2B sales, it experiences almost everything there. And they know all the mean tricks there. That is also something in my personal experience that you would be looking for in a business angel if you're going into B2B. What is a normal way people approach you for investments in their startup? Is it your network? Is it something like Twitter. I've been already recording an interview with the CEO of HTGF, High Tech Gründerfonds, Europe's most active seed investor. And he said he would even reply to an email that says just in the headline, "Yo, we should talk." Would you do that as well?
Well, I think it depends. I would say I don't think I get investment proposals so much on Twitter, but of course a lot through LinkedIn. People sending me their pitch decks and like, could you help us? Find investors. I'm like, excuse me, I don't know you. Who are you? And what is the connection here? And I think, of course, it depends. I would say that normally for me, they would have to somehow be connected to me before, that they come through a recommendation by someone else, or we build a relationship over time, over even maybe over online. But I would say still I'm quite traditional in this way. So I get to know people. I want to understand what they're doing. So no, I wouldn't probably reply to that Joe email now.
I really had to smile here. Finnish girl who lived and worked in Shanghai, started being a business angel all across the world, and she says, "Oh, I'm a more traditional person." I really like that one. When you've been talking about pitch decks, there was just a question. We already talked about the importance of pitch decks, but what are some of the mistakes you are actually seeing, like in terms of mistakes people are making in the pitch decks? Because from my personal experience is they are much too confined in their very small world, and they only think in those terms and don't think bigger, like the usual thing you're saying is in consulting, a slide is good when your grandmother will understand it. Most of the slides I did, not even my mother would understand. Nonetheless, what are the mistakes you've been seeing there, and have you seen any pitch deck in the world other than PowerPoint?
Yeah, maybe people should try to be more creative, but no, I think it's. I have to say there are some great tools nowadays. Like there's this company called Pitch.com. I think they try to make it easy for people to to come up with some more maybe easy to understand pitch decks. But I think in the end, of course, the purpose of a pitch deck is just to try to somehow convey, what is it that you're doing in a short, precise way, and making people interested. The idea is not, I think, that trying to explain everything that you're doing in a pitch deck is impossible. The idea would be that it's a support tool that you go, once you have, we always talk about the short deck, that is that to make people curious, interested, that they actually even bother talking to you. And then you have the long deck that you're actually going to present to the person, explaining everything, going in detail, seeing what they find easy to understand, what is difficult to understand. And I think that the mistake, as you were also referring to, often is that people try to put too much into the pitch deck. And this is not the purpose. Nobody is going to give you money just based on 10 slides or 6 slides. So the whole purpose is to try to make them think that, okay, this person actually thought about what they wanted to tell me. It's like you have these 30-second, elevator speeches or whatever. So trying to make people, curious, understand, is this something I can relate to? Because normally people invest also in stuff that they understand. So trying to maybe take the point of view of an investor. So thinking, okay, would this investor, how would I make them interested? How can I make this problem very concrete for them to understand? And we always say you have to start with the problem and then you come with the solution, not that you come up with a great solution and then you try to fit the problem into it, which also, of course, unfortunately happens very often. You fall in love in something that you really like to do. I think like we see a lot with blockchain. People try to, everything is blockchain. And, then they find out the reason why this blockchain should be used and, whatever. But I think it really, like, keeping it simple, not putting too many words in a slide. And as you say, trying to make a 5-year-old understand. Sometimes maybe they understand more than we think. But still, a couple of sentences in each slide. And maybe, trying to use visuals, somehow to explain and show, what is it that you're trying to accomplish. And, of course, having some kind of numbers, like at least, what is it how much money you're trying to raise, and what is it that maybe that you're trying to do with it. But I think in the beginning, as I said, the simple deck is just to explain what, there's a problem, why is it a problem, and our solution is like this, and how is it urgent, to solve this thing, and why would people be willing actually to spend money in doing this thing that you're doing. And of course, if you can show, and you should be able to show some kind of traction. If you don't have clients yet, at least show how you developed something in such a certain time period, to show that there's some activity going, because nobody's going to invest in someone who has a wonderful idea and waiting for people to give them money before they can start. That is not going to happen.
Personal experience, pitch decks are usually considered good when you have a compound annual growth rate on it, and it has to be above 1,000% and goes like this. Woo! We could talk much more about this, but everybody who's curious can of course reach out to you directly. This interview is sponsored by Hessen Trade and Invest, investinhessen.com. Of course, go down here in the show notes. There's a link and you can find it. I would be curious, what are your thoughts? Because we know each other for quite some time, and can you spill a few secrets just between you and me and like 25,000 people listening or seeing this podcast? What do you think about the Rhine-Main region as a startup hub from the perspective of an investor?
Yes, I think it's of course, I love Frankfurt. So let's start with a positive note. So I really love it. I think it's very international. I think there are great people there. And I think we have also, great entrepreneurs and people who are willing to, to take a risk and start something new, which is, of course, super, super important. Maybe because of the, let's say, a little bit stiff and I'm Finn, so we always say things very directly. I would say a little bit unmotivating environment that we maybe sometimes encounter in Frankfurt from, certain let's say that if the environment would be a bit more stimulating, people maybe wouldn't go to Berlin or wouldn't go somewhere else. And personally, I think Berlin is a nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. So I think Frankfurt has a great potential of really being something where startups actually also want to stay. I mean, we have, of course, a couple of good examples of also very successful startups that are staying in Frankfurt, like Clark and some others. But I think this is probably what is a little bit needed, that people would feel, and I do think that those people who've lived a while in Frankfurt, they do also try to stay there, and I think also the money is not a problem, because there is a lot of money in Frankfurt and the area. You have all these retired bankers and people with pockets full of money that don't know what to do with it. Well, joke aside, but I think it's you have great infrastructure. You have a big airport. You can fly anywhere you want to go with the train, whatever means of travel you choose. And of course, nowadays, you can do actually a lot do remotely. And I think, but maybe some people are still a bit more traditional and would like to meet in person if you have no other, let's say, strong links to a person. So I think from a investor's point of view, it's always the more, of course, startups you have, the bigger chance you have that some of them are good. So I think the main point for Frank would be to how can you stimulate that more people would actually found their own startup. So then we have more to choose from.
And probability commands that the more startups you have, the more good ones will be between them, and the more ultimately very successful startups will be there. Actually, what I've seen as a tendency after the crisis I've experienced so far here is, after every crisis, there's like a handful of, or more than a handful of people, just a handful that I meet, who are leaving their corporate job and setting up startups. I do believe that is also something you don't usually have in a lot of other places. It's unique here. And I also do like that, even though Frankfurt, I would say, is a little bit more on the B2B side, as opposed to other places like Berlin, where they're a little bit more on the B2C, business to client side. Do you think that as well?
Yes, and I, of course, I've never really, my expertise is not in B2C. So I personally believe that there's a lot you can do with B2B. And of course, the thing is, maybe it's a longer road, so to say, to get the client. But once you have them, let's say, you are probably more secured in also to keeping them. So I think it's, in a way, every ecosystem or every city should, or every area, they should concentrate in what they're good at. And I think Frankfurt has this unique opportunity that we have so many financial institutes and so many banks there. And also, I think I would say for people who are maybe wondering of if they should set up their company or not, is that they should test out. You shouldn't just quit your job and, I'm going to be entrepreneur. You can also do that. Some people have, some of us do that, but, it's not for everybody. But I would say you can experiment a lot of stuff, with even when you are working. But like on Jörn, you're a great example of that. I mean, you tested your idea before you decided to go full on, and I think that is the right way to do it. To like test it out, because sometimes we have maybe a bit glorified idea how great the thing is that we want to do. So it's better maybe to test it out, talk to people, and find some feedback and to then do it when you feel that, okay, this is actually has a, let's say, more than 50% chance of becoming a success. So go for it.
And the full disclaimer, you don't need to be in the podcast charts of 41 countries, from Japan to Paraguay, from the US to Hong Kong, before you can start out on your own. It's totally sufficient if you do your first sale, and that should be totally fine. Well, there would be one more thing I would be curious about. Where can people apply for like the next wave of the Accelerator Frankfurt? Where can they learn more about you? Of course, we'll link stuff like Accelerator Frankfurt Twitter account, your personal LinkedIn profile. I do believe you have a personal Twitter account as well. We'll link that here as well, and so people can reach out to you, stalk you everywhere, and that's totally fine. When is the next wave starting, and would it be all once again an all-female program?
Well, I think it's too early to say. So the current wave, where we have these 4 amazing women, Mia and Anu, Hanna and Carla. So they're all B2B, but some of them are, like Carla is really early stage. She's still, looking for her perfect co-founder. And as I always say, that's the, very, very, very difficult decision. It's more than, finding the right husband. It's because you're really stuck to someone once you set up a company. Anyway, but I think the demo day is going to be on the 16th of December. And I'm sure there's certainly going to be another wave in spring. I think the idea will probably be maybe that it's going to be a mixed one, but let's say if we are floated by insanely good female founders, we might run another female program, who knows. But I think the idea is to see that if you could run a normal program for diverse, of course, preferably, and I think now we have a great chance to crack the numbers and not having non-existent percentages of females. But I think the best way to find out, how is the program, how is it working, is probably to reach out to the people who have done the program already. And I'm sure if there's some female founders they're wondering, and all these ladies they're amazing. You can reach out to them, I'm sure, through LinkedIn and ask them of their opinion. But you can always send us, email to ask for information. But I would say the best thing is always to go to the website, you have it downstairs, acceleratorfrankfurt.com. and to fill in the application form. And then you will be, contacted in due course when the next wave is starting.
Great. Thank you very much. That was everything I want to know. One more question. Can you say goodbye in Finnish?
Näkemiin.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.